Hello, so today we're going to talk about the difference between appositional growth and interstitial growth. So these processes, these growth processes can happen within cartilage and bone. We're going to first discuss it within cartilage and then I'll talk about some similarities and differences to bone. So the first thing we need to do is compare and contrast these types of growth. So with our appositional growth, this is growth from the outside, so more of the periphery of cartilage in this case, or if we were talking about bone, it would be the outside of the bone, close to that periosteum. In cartilage, our chondroblasts in our perichondrium or near our perichondrium are going to secrete matrix, and that is on our surface of our pre-existing cartilage. So this is really helping to increase the cartilage in width, whereas interstitial growth, this is happening within the cartilage from the inside. Interstitial, remember, means inside the tissue. And our chondrocytes within are going to divide and secrete new matrix. This is a little bit different, more complicated process, which we'll discuss in the coming slides. And they do this from within a lacuna. It's going to help to increase the cartilage in length, and it makes the cartilage more dense. Okay, so we're just packing in more cartilage matrix into that, that same space. So first I'm going to talk about interstitial growth of cartilage. And I just realized I left some remnants here. It took me quite some time to create this animation, so of course there's going to be some flaws. Okay, just so everything makes sense. So we have our perichondrium that is going to surround our piece of cartilage. Within this perichondrium, we have some mesenchymal cells, and these mesenchymal cells are going to get a signal to turn into chondroblasts. These chondroblasts are then going to secrete cartilage matrix, building the matrix, and the ones that are staying more within this new matrix are going to turn into chondrocytes within lacuna. So that's what we see here. Of course, then they get another signal to divide into what's known as isogenic groups. So what this means, and I'm going to show you an image here, is we have really, well, we can call this a chondrocyte, but we're going to have two cells, two cartilage cells within one lacuna. So we call this an isogenic chondrocyte group. Okay, so they're going to secrete matrix. Okay, so I know I had a whole bunch here. Imagine this is happening with all of them, but I'm just going to focus on one. And what we find within this chondrocyte is actually going to be two chondroblasts. So don't get confused here. The isogenic chondrocyte within that one lacuna is actually two chondroblasts within one lacuna. Okay, so what they do now, because it's a chondroblast, right, they're gonna secrete matrix. Okay, and they secrete so much matrix, so I always like to think of this as like roommates coming to live together in one space within a lacuna, and everybody starts bringing in their stuff, and they're like, well, I want to bring in my couch, and I want to bring in my TV, my computer, my fridge, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it gets so dense in that one area that they decide to spread apart, okay? And they go off on their merry way, separate as chondrocytes within their own lacuna. So that's what's happening within interstitial growth. It's making the tissue, the cartilage tissue, more dense. Now, you might be thinking, how do we do this within bone? And the truth is, we can't really do this with bone because bone is really compact already. It's really rigid, it's dense as far as the compact bone. So what technically anatomists call interstitial growth of bone is really the growth at that epiphyseal plate that allows the bone to grow in length. That we were talking about all those different zones, how those chondrocytes stack together like pancakes. It's that process. And if you're still a little confused on that process, just let me know and I can maybe create another screencast like this, or we can converse via email or text. So let's move into appositional growth of cartilage. Before I go into that, I just want to remind you that this growth is happening at the surface, at the periphery. So this is actually a piece of cartilage. So that means our growth is going to be happening here, here, and here. Or if we're talking about bone, it would be happening, along the periphery of the bone that's formed. Okay, so always have that in the back of your head. Okay, so let's get rid of that. We're going to talk about appositional growth of cartilage. We have our perichondrium, we have our normal chondrocytes within our cartilage, and along the periphery near that perichondrium we're going to have these mesenchymal cells again. And if you recall from class, these mesenchymal cells are kind of like stem cells. They can become anything they want. So in this instance they are going to turn into chondroblasts. We know these chondroblasts are going to start building matrix. So everybody is bringing their stuff to the dorms. All right, we got all of our stuff, and we are going to move into our own separate lacunae, our own separate rooms, and we need to have a big building to do this. So we start off in maybe a small building. Let's say you go to a community college first, and then you decide, I want to go to Robert Morris University. So you need a bigger space, and so we're going to grow and live in an area that maybe we have a little bit more opportunity. Okay, so at that point our perichondrium has grown larger, our community has grown larger within the university, and these chondroblasts get trapped in a lacuna. You get trapped within your program that you need to finish, and you're going to become a chondrocyte, and you'll be so happy when you're there. So I'm going to kind of put both those isogenic types and irregular chondrocytes here in the middle. So I hope that kind of explains appositional and interstitial growth a little bit better. Please let me know if you still have questions on this topic. Actually, before I end, I also want to add that appositional growth is going to happen, which was this last topic that we talked about, is going to happen the same way for bone and cartilage, whereas interstitial growth, like I said, the process we went through is for cartilage, but interstitial growth of bone is more of that growth at the epiphyseal plate. So I just want to make that clear.